Hello, welcome. Thank you for joining me today. I didn't think I was going to do a reading today, but I just did a couple private readings through virtual, and I have all my cards here, and I was like, oh my gosh, let's just do a reading. So I have been really kind of struggling with this energy, so I want to read into it for myself, and I do think it's collective, so hopefully it'll be helpful to some of you as well. And for me, it kind of, so in the last reading we were talking about that heaviness that a lot of us were feeling and some of that self-doubt, and I'm not feeling the self-doubt anymore, but I still feel that sort of like overlay of heaviness, just this sort of like shadow element. Okay, and so the other thing that's happening for me is I wake up and I feel almost anxious, and I had talked about this in a post you might have seen if you're watching from Facebook, but almost anxious or like kind of nauseous, like just like so much like solar plexus, like, and it reminds me of when I was going through my divorce and I was in a custody battle with my ex-husband, and it went on for like 3 or 4 years, and I could always tell, I could feel in the energy field, because if you're in a situation with somebody that attacks you in one way or another, it's like you you become hyper vigilant, and so you're always like kind of spidey sensing and reading the energy to see when something's going on. So even though we were living in different towns, in some cases 2 hours away, it's like I could always feel in the field like a little spider sitting in her web. When something was going on, I could feel when he was conniving or planning something, scheming, and then sure enough, I'd always get something in the mail, some kind of court order or some crazy thing. And so I have a little bit of a trauma around that, around feeling something coming. So I can't tell if this feeling, I feel like something's coming in and it's making me nervous. I don't know if that's like a PTSD, like maybe what's coming in is something really wonderful, that I'm spidey sensing something wonderful. I'm really curious if other people are feeling this, if you're feeling that sort of like something out on the edge. I definitely feel positive things out on the edge, but there's something in the energy that's making me anxious, a little bit anxious and restless. And but at the same time, if I flip the script, it feels like excitement, because even if it is, and I'm always talking about this, but even if it is a negative or something that brings me to my knees again, like wouldn't be the first time or the 20th, but it would still be something that would end up being necessary. So that's what we were talking about last time, the soul knows, and just surrendering into that, like, radical acceptance of everything, where you just show up and surrender to your journey and allow it to take you home, allow it to take you where you need to be. So, even if it is, so maybe it's part of that rewiring too, that rewiring where it's like we kind of want to like brace ourselves against something negative, but it's like rewiring our brains to be like, but that's okay, that's okay, because nothing can really harm us. It's all about expansion, and it's all about opening. So yeah, sorry, I'm just kind of thinking out loud here now. I'm feeling out loud. Like I said, I wasn't going to do a reading because I feel a little in process, but sometimes those are the most powerful readings because they're really raw. Not that I'm not always raw, but still, But so a lot with, I'm seeing it now a lot with unraveling the program that tells us to be afraid or nervous about things coming. On the other hand, I might be picking up on something. I might be picking up on sort of like a false flag or something going on from the negative fraction, right, in the world of polarity. There's always going to be that, and I do have an attunement to that sort of like conniving, scheming energy. So I might be picking up on something that's coming down the pipe, but even that would just be the reflection of something positive. So it's always sort of two sides of the same coin. If there's an uptick in light, then there's going to be an uptick in the dark. And just sort of the two sides of the same coin. So there may be something coming. There may be something coming that I'm feeling, or something going on, some sort of like new frequency coming in, or something. I don't know. Something that's throwing some of us off. I've heard other people talking about that as well, like and Amanda Lawrence was talking about a new energy coming in, and that was just today. So today is Friday, the 22nd, and she was talking about that. But I started feeling this way around Monday or Tuesday. I started feeling that sort of like anxiety, like what's coming, what's coming. I've had that before where I felt like, oh, something's coming in, and it's felt only like excitement, and then something exciting and new and positive does come in. This has a little bit more of a different mix. I also think this is a really heightened time. We're coming up on the eclipses. Tomorrow is the new moon. my ex-husband, who I'm not friends with, is, because all that, like I've said, we've up-leveled all of that. But he's a Vedic astrologer, kind of lay, but he's been doing it for a while, and he's very intelligent. So, what he was saying is that this new moon tomorrow, it would be in Leo, I think, in Vedic astrology. He's a Vedic astrologer. He was saying it's like an eclipse. I forget why. Something about it makes it felt like an eclipse. So that could be the energy that I'm feeling, or if you're feeling this energy, that could be the energy that we're feeling right now. And there could be something about this eclipse. There could be something about this eclipse and this eclipse season that's just sort of, it might have a lot of power to it. It might have a lot of power. It might have a lot of positive change in terms of the ascension journey, or the organic ascension journey that we're on, which might be creating a opposing force on the other side. Okay, something like that. So those are just my sort of like random scattered thoughts on this energy. The other thing that's really been coming up, I feel, and in communing with my sister today, has been a lot about the shadow stuff. And often when shadow energy is coming up in us, or coming up in the collective, it can be processed as anxiety, or feel like anxiety, because it's something that was kept down, that we didn't want to see, that's coming back up, and so a lot of shadow stuff as well. I feel a lot of us, it's like kind of the end of the line with stuffing, like whatever was stuffed is coming up to be seen. So let's see what the cards say about this. So two cards fell out for overall energies. I'm just going to go ahead and take them both. Let's see here. Wow. Well, that's really interesting. So, yeah, so we get Moth Spirit Surrender Now. This card actually came up in one of the personal readings that I did recently, and I was saying to her how a lot of us are being asked to have a sort of like radical surrender, surrendering to all the things in life. So this is really a fitting card for what I was just saying as well, where we're again, like in the last reading, where we're rewiring our neural pathways to not view in terms of polarity. There might be a light and a dark, and there might be a this fraction and that fraction, but to realize that they're all working in the same direction, and so everything is in service to the light. The light, the moth goes to the light, right? But also that surrendering the obsession with looking over your shoulder and wondering what's wrong. And so that's a personal message for me as well, coming out of that trauma of like, oh God, somebody's out to get me, and so I guess I'm clearing that now. So, and you might be doing similarly. Okay, so Lizard Spirit, dream the world into being. So, there we go. These two cards, how freaking beautiful. So it's like, surrender the idea that anything is ever wrong. Surrender the idea that there's get out of duality, polarity thinking, and remember that you're a creator being. And so that's what happened for me the other day, when I was like, ooh, I feel anxious. I feel like something's coming. I feel something under the current. And then it was like, hold on. And I just turned it around, and it's like, well, it feels like excitement and anticipation. Something's coming. But, it's like be focused on that and excited about that, and welcome and receiving for the blessings that are coming. So it's like, again, a lot with the neural pathways, and knowing what we want to see, and kind of claiming the bull by the horn, and knowing that everything that's coming, whether it feels good or not, is taking us towards our dreams, and it's part of unraveling that knot. So, okay, so that feels like a similar, kind of a similar energy to last time, but without all that self-doubt. It's almost like we cleared the way, we cleared more of the dross, to get to this point where there's really not much in between us and our co-creation. And look at these colors, and this was coming up in the last reading as well. All these like fiery activation colors. It's like our will, our life force, our that spark, that divine spark coming back to life as we shake off the self-doubt and we shake off the layers. And so we were talking about the seventh seal and the Kundalini energy. Wow, look at those colors, rising the whole way up into this creation, into this new realm. So it would make sense. It would make sense because we are moving out of the duality consciousness and into unity consciousness, that as we're expanding and coming into our co-creation power, there will be things from the shadow within ourselves, or within, because it's a fractal, right? So whether it's within ourselves or within our relationships or within the world or within the galactic scene, that there would be a release in relation to that, Whenever when we're in the dark, we gain more of our light, and often when we expand into more light, more of our dark comes up. It's like it has to be seen and released amidst all of that light. And so that's a bit of clarity that I'm having right now. I think probably what I'm feeling, what others are feeling is a new level, a new release of darkness in relation to the new level of light that's come on with this last clearing that we did with that self-doubt and a lot of the neural programs, and a lot of us going through that at the same time, watching those patterns and seeing through them and choosing differently. So it's like a whole other level seems to have been gotten activated, which is kicking up a whole level of clearing. Let's see what. Wow, so it's happening again. Look at that. Look at these colors. This is exactly what happened in that last reading. And so the Queen of Wands, she came up. I don't think she came up in the last two readings, but she comes up in a lot of the readings. So she's the one when we're no longer leaking our energy on self-doubt or self-abandonment. We have our circuitry intact and we become super magnetic, and we draw in everything that is our birthright. That's that co-creation energy. There's that spark where she's like, oh my God, I did it. Look at, wow, look at the power that I have when I'm not blocking myself, and dreaming the world into being, creating the new earth, creating that heaven on earth template through that spark and alignment with ourselves. Okay, so there's that sort of choosing your lane as well, not looking over our shoulders to see what's chasing us, and if we are, then that means we're clearing that. I'm clearing that through my energy field. Thank you for getting triggered. Wow, because I don't need to carry that around anymore. But it's like that stuff gets buried, and then sometimes it can't clear until just the right conditions where it can, and it's almost like we go deeper and deeper and deeper into these levels of clearing. And so every time we do another level of clearing and we up level, we jump. There's been a huge timeline jump, I feel, collectively, and a lot of us feeling that, aware of that individually in our lives, and then that releasing a whole other level. But doesn't it feel a little bit different? To me, it feels different. It feels so different. Let me keep pulling. Let's see what that. There's a quality to the energy that's different. Okay, it's almost like we made it the whole way to Oz, and we just pulled back that curtain, and there's that little twerp sitting there like, and we're like, are you fucking kidding me? It's like that. It's like the last veils, the last swipe, where even as we're feeling this, it's kind of like, oh, there's excitement with it, where there's this sort of like impending like shadow stuff coming up, but it's like breakthrough energy. That's what it feels like to me, and it's been feeling that way, right? But getting closer and closer to this breakthrough energy. Wow. Okay. Well, more wands, more fire, more red, more orange, more of that type of energy. The Five of Wands being a card of outer conflict, and these are dragons, and this is the outer world, and this is like, where nothing, the chaos, where nothing's harmonious. It's like the opposite of what we're doing. So there's the outer appearance, that's like what I was feeling, like what is this crazy energy, or like the other people that are like, oh, there's like new heart frequencies, and they're coming out, whatever it is, when we kind of look to that fourth dimensional perspective, and we can see some horrors and discord, and the opposite side of the polarity. But again, choosing our lane, because we're really, our energy flows where our attention goes, right? And we're dreaming the world into being. So we're choosing to focus. So like that day when, if you saw that post on Facebook where I was saying how I woke up and I felt kind of anxious and kind of nauseous, and then I turned it around, and a lot of people were relating to that. They had to do that same day, which I believe was Tuesday. Yeah, it was Tuesday. And so, just kind of feeling this type of energy, and then just like, no, like, no mas, no, I'm not doing this. And I'm going to contain my energy. I'm not going to leak my energy to that, and I'm going to focus. And so there's that surrender as well, with our two overall energies, surrendering to what is. It's like, okay, I feel that energy, but how can I interpret it and describe it to myself in the most empowering way? The most empowering way, instead of feeling something, out on the edge of the web that's dark, or that's coming to get us, or that's, doing something to us. It's like feel it as anticipation for what's coming, because the truth of the matter is, as soon as we seal off our energy and we have this our magnetic energetic signature intact, magnetizing in what's to a match to us, that's when we start dreaming the world into being and creating. So not losing focus. And I feel like we're really close. We're really, really close. Again, that seventh seal and that Kundalini energy releasing for a lot of us, and in the collective, it's like something got released. There was this life force spark that has come, right? So there's gonna be both. If there's more light, there's gonna be more dark, but remembering that they're actually all together. So to not separate it out. And to be excited about what's coming. I've been struggling a little bit. It's, again, I still have that flat feeling. Like I spent the last 2 days with yesterday and the day before with dear friends of mine, and we were in nature, we were at the river, we were in the forest, separately one day and then the other. And I still felt kind of flat. Like it just wasn't like, yeah, it's like I could say something's in the way, but it's almost like we're just so on the brink of this new expression and this new expansion, that there's just a little bit of trembling on the threshold, or there's like we're acclimating again. It's like every time we do a jump, we have to acclimate again. And so my friend that I saw yesterday, she had just moved out, out of a town north of me, but she moved out pretty much into the middle of nowhere, and she's living right above the river. It's a 5-minute walk to the river, and there's like these huge, amazing views, and she's like the only one on this mountain right now, and this hill, this area, and so she's adjusting. She's only been there 2 weeks, and so I could tell she was a little bit ungrounded. Like when we were going to the river, she's like, okay, I need my hat and I need food, but I'm not hungry. I need water. She was just like trying to gather herself, and so we and I feel similarly in my own way. My daughter's in Morocco right now, and she's going to all these clubs because the drinking age is 18, and she's maneuvering all these situations, and I'm kind of over here, holding fort and holding energy and this kind of thing. But it's like there's so much shifting, and with her and my daughter and I, we're kind of like we share a soul or a brain, or like we share an energy field. So it's like part of me is in Morocco in these clubs, and like there's so much bleed through between us, and just feeling like all this expansion, and also kind of being like, wait, where am I, and like what day is it, and like did I eat, do I need to eat, maybe I can just not eat, can we just not eat, and that kind of thing, and just that kind of weird transitioning energy, which can make you feel a little bit vulnerable, and then if you're feeling like other energies in the mix of that, it can it can just be kind of a strange time. So maybe you're relating, maybe you're also feeling a little bit of this strange time. So I'm just going to keep reading. See if we get another vibrantly red card. No, we get resistance. Okay, it's just like, no, halt, stop, so definitely a little bit of that in the energy, which obviously from everything that I've shared, I'm feeling a bit in myself too, where it's like, wait, am I safe? Wait, is everything okay? Wait, is my daughter gonna get roofied in Morocco? Like, like what's going on? Am I gonna get a court order? No, I'm not gonna get a court order. Like, I'm not in battle with anybody. Like, it's okay. And then remembering, surrendering and remembering, we all have our divine, in fact, in the last 2 readings that I did, the 3 of Pentacles came up, and both of them were with that soul contract that we got last time with the scroll, and like things being written, and there are, contracts with events and contracts with people, and like none of this is an accident. So again, like, oh, in fact, my friend that I was seeing yesterday, it was maybe like 14 years ago, and she was involved in ayahuasca ceremonies at that time, and she came back with this download, and it was I lost custody of my kids on December 21st, 2012. And I was like, motherfucker, the shift of the ages. And I lose custody of my kids. I'm like, okay, there's something to this, some kind of crazy coyote medicine. But I was just like heartbroken, and just all that. And so anyway, she brought back to me what did she say? Trust in the perfection of everything, something like that. Everything is perfect, trust, something like that. And so I wrote that on like big pieces of paper, and I taped them all around my house, above like every doorway, just to program that, and to see it over and over again. And I was telling her, I was like, remember that? Remember when we were doing that? And I was like, I feel like it's taken me like 14 or 15 years to finally start having that be like my mostly dominant neural pathway, So we were talking about that a lot in the last reading, just the how that words, that phrase, the soul knows, came through for me in the dream space. And so, but yeah, having that become the dominant neural pathway, where we're living from that, knowing that everything is that. So, but obviously still a little bit of resistance, where you freeze up and am I safe? And then just, yes, I'm safe. Yes, I'm safe. And not leaking energy into the nightmare, the outer distortion, the outer program that conditions and trains us to feel unsafe. So that our energy scatters out, and it battles ourselves, and it battles others as if things were separate when they're really not, and where everything is about coming home, and the more we can accept and embrace that, the more we come into this just this gorgeous energy within ourselves, where we're attracting in what's a match to us, and when we're not in that resistance and we're not in this fight anymore, then what we're drawing in isn't a reflection of this type of energy either. It's like if we're in this energy, it's going to keep coming, because that's what we're calling forward until we're done with it, until we choose not to put our energy on this anymore. So again, dream the world into being. What are we dreaming? What are we focusing on? So just a really big reminder for us right now with that, because there is so much potential right now and so much power right at our fingertips. And so that's what I have been feeling with this energy. When I feel this darker energy, it's like it's just a distraction. It's a distraction, but it's also our own internal shadow that wants to be seen and met and integrated. Speaking of ayahuasca, a lot of the plant medicine ceremonies, you can kind of see that expanded picture, but then that shadow that needs to be integrated will kind of follow you around. I used to do energy work with a lot of people that were involved in those ceremonies, and their energies were so scattered, and it's always about integration, like maybe give a little more time in between them, it becomes like a social thing where you don't want to miss out, and it's your family, and all these things, but give a little time to integrate. So it's interesting that that's coming up, but yeah, just integrating that shadow. And so that's what my sister and I were talking about today, like where that shadow stuff is kind of chasing us around, like we're not gonna get away from it. We have to turn and face it, otherwise we're gonna, if we keep resisting it and we keep blaming other people and just sort of like fighting what is, instead of seeing that everything is trying to come back home, it's trying to come back home to us. So even like my friend and I yesterday, she had this dog, and she had two dogs, and the one dog was really stubborn. He was like part wolf, like part retriever, part wolf, and he was really stubborn, like sweetest little guy. He had allergies, and he like he loses his hair in the summer, so he's kind of bald, and he's just like this goofy, adorable thing. But anyway, we were just kind of like struggling with this dog, and with like, we were like commenting on like our control issues, and how like when something's really pushy and coming up in your space, how you just like kind of like freak out, so we just kept seeing in all these different ways, like these shadow elements within ourselves, and we're a lot alike, so we were paralleling, and just kind of like yeah, just kind of like fessing up. So we were talking about that last time in that last reading, how a lot of us are just sort of talking about some of the darker aspects of our lives, and just being like, yeah, I did that, I did that, and I did that because of this, and because of trauma, and because I felt out of control, and because I didn't have good boundaries, and just, so we did a lot of processing around shadow and the inception point of it, and and then even finding the adorable things about this dog, like, oh, well, that's so cute how he goes in the river and he brings these like giant boulders in his mouth, like that's freaking adorable. And she's like, thank you for saying that, thank you for helping me remember that he's adorable, and so yeah. And anyway, just kind of seeing the shadow and seeing it everywhere, so that definitely seems to be sort of the thing, not resisting the things that are going on in our lives, because they are mirrors of ourselves. They wouldn't be in our lives if we didn't have some piece in it, in ourselves, some piece to see, and just going in and doing that shadow work, and even if it's really intense, and we don't like it, and we don't want to see all those parts of ourselves, like, oh shit, there's me, oh no, there's me too, oh god, that's me too, and like, wow, and yet bringing it all back home, so that we're not leaking any energy on resistance and blame, outer blame, or trying to control things, because those things that we want to control are doing the things that they're doing, so that we can look within ourselves, right? So that message keeps coming up. But these three messages right here, with like surrendering, dreaming the world into being, and this being that gorgeous alignment that pulls in everything that we want. It's like grabbing what, but again, it's like just the summary of the message from last time, seeing everything as or what I was saying to my friend as well, what we had, what I had put all around my house, everything. Oh, and the other thing that I used to have all these affirmations all around my house, and I change them out and this and that. The one that has stayed, and it was probably from that time, it's on a small card, and it says, everything is energy in motion, dancing itself out to perfection. Trust, and so I referred back to that so many times when I was in this type of energy where it's like, okay, there's something to this. There's something to this. And this was coming up in those personal readings that I did earlier as well. So it's like that collective energy of like, no matter how crunchy it is, there's something to it. And it's really about going into our own, that deep self-reflection, going into that shadow place. And confronting ourselves so that we can come into that wholeness and we can start living the really juicy, wonderful lives that we came here to live, and that we're on the brink of now collectively in terms of the cycle of the ages and the ascension cycle that we're in. So, okay, I'm going to pull cards underneath this row and see what we get. All right. Yeah, okay. So the 9 of Swords. So I'm feeling that this isn't just me. So this is a card of anxiety and fear and nightmares and being kept up at night. I've been having some strange dreams. I watched something that a friend had sent me, and she was like, what do you think about this woman? And I watched this woman. Oh, I thought she was so adorable. She was like so beautiful, first of all, and I just was like admiring her the whole time, and I loved her voice, and it was like kind of raspy and squeaky, and I just thought it was the cutest thing ever. And she had like this really interesting hair, and I was just like, gosh, she's so great. Like, I just love her. And I listened to her whole thing, and she does like light language channeling, and she's a healer and all these things, and I could relate to some of the things she was sharing. So then I watched a couple more of her, and at the end of that video, there was a channeling, a light language channeling that she did, and I just opened right up to it, and I felt it, and it was just so great. And so then I watched a couple more of her videos just on her own. She was being interviewed by somebody that I like, and so, and I could tell that like she had like a bit of naivety when it came to like beings and entities coming in at her, So again, it's like that's probably why I liked her so much, because she probably has boundary issues too, and just kind of that naive thing where you just let everybody in. But yeah, so she was talking about this like alien being that came to her at night. She does a lot of work in the astral, and I do too. But and this being was really pushy, and she was like, she couldn't get it to go away, and it wanted her to like anchor something into the earth, and so she did. And I was like, oh my gosh. So for me, it's like, so here it comes back to the dog again, like, or even the white horse, or that man that I was talking about. If anybody is pushing their energy on me, to me, it's a flag. It's a red flag that they're not in alignment. They're not honoring flow. They're not honoring process. They're not honoring free will. They're trying to get what they want. They have their own agenda, and it's like holding our boundaries and holding our container and holding our own self-preservation and right to say no, our right to say no, and our right to protect our vessels. Why? So that we can magnetize in, and then we don't need some alien being coming and telling us anything. It's like we have our container intact where we have access to all of it. We're not lacking anything where we have to look outside of ourselves in any way. And so when I saw that, I was like, oh gosh, I just thought of the collective work that we're all doing and the pieces that we're all playing in that, but I wasn't going to listen to her anymore. But that night I had some interference, and I feel like if somebody's channeling and they don't have good boundaries, then they're also channeling through entities or beings or energies that are that have agendas, that might infiltrate, right? And so again, another lesson for me in discernment, and another lesson in just recognizing the frequency of everything, recognizing the frequency of channelers that perhaps have riders with them, recognizing the frequency of those riders, all these things, just I feel like this is really, really a time where we have to have a lot of discernment, and not fear where we're like, there's a finesse to it, not like where we're resisting what's coming because we're looking over our shoulder and we're anticipating something bad happening. It's more like a fine tuning of our perception, a fine tuning of our boundaries and kind of knowing ourselves really well and knowing frequencies really well, so that we don't so that we don't leak, so that we don't leak our energy, so that we have this intact, so that we can create. So, it's always sort of a paradox, and again, it's like all these different dimensional perspectives. So I always talk about this as well, how like on the one hand, there are attacks and there are the riders and there are these things trying to come at us. But on the other hand, it's all in service, because all we really have to do is get our energy intact and know that nothing can come at us, and be able to recognize and know when something's off, and just be like, oh, nope. Get really good at that. It's like we might have these big open hearts and we have this wide capacity for unconditional love and acceptance and embracing, and this big view of where we're going, all this, but also being wise, so it's like using everything in a discerning way, but using it for the holding. Yeah, for the holding. It's like how do we recognize what's in distortion? On the one hand, we're shutting it out so that we can have our container, but we're also recognizing and thanking it. Thank you for teaching me this nuance of seeing that I now have, right? Or thank you for teaching me that lesson by having me fall completely under, and then doing this shadow work and coming out better, right? Working with the demonic or the negative or the dark, and knowing that it's in service, but letting it grow you wiser. So anyway, a lot of this sort of nightmare energy. So I had these kind of nightmare infiltration energy, and it was so annoying, because, and it's also that type of energy can become like mosquitoes at a certain point when you really get yourself intact, where this little bitch was like, it was showing me, it was like using the fractal nature, where it was like, oh, I'm here, but I'm also here, and 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 I'm also here. And I was like, I don't care. I know you are. It doesn't matter. That's not scary. That could be scary, but it's not scaring me, but it was this, the energy of it was icky and gross and whatever. And I knew it was connected to that channel that I listened to. I knew it was connected to that beautiful, wonderful woman. And God bless her, or her higher self bless her, or life bless her, and thank you. She was part of my hologram, and, and whatever lessons she's learning, and beautiful things that she's offering along the way as well. So anyway, so yeah, this type of energy, this type of fear energy hanging around, and it's also part of the shadow that we're confronting, right? As we fine tune. Okay, so let's see what else here. Oh, okay. And that's coming out underneath the surrender now. So it's like surrendering to the fear spaces as well. Not fearing the fear. It's like with the darker energies, it's like, oh, you can't help it that you feel like this. You can't help it that you're like creepy as fuck. It's just how you feel. It's how you are. Like there's room for all of us here. Some things feel amazing, some things don't. It's part of that seeing behind the scenes, or feeling energetically. Things that other people might not feel. It's part of fine-tuning our perception, our multi-dimensional perception, and honoring that, and even seeing it as kind of an adventure of like, oh, I'm learning how to navigate this realm. I'm learning how to not get stuck in the fourth dimensional fear, and getting stuck there, and resisting, however that plays out, or getting tangled up in these confusing energies. I'm learning how to navigate that, and that's connected to my power, and that's connected to me sealing off my energy, and this is connected to me being able to walk our dreams forward as a species. As a species, this is our Earth. We're doing this. We're doing it. We're doing our ascension cycle, and the things from beyond that want to come in and vamp off that, or try to control it, or whatever. It's like yeah, it's ours, and that's part of that too, pulling back our energy and knowing that we have everything that we need inside of ourselves as humans, as humans that are here on this planet, doing what we need to do at this point in human evolution. Again, the soul knows, the soul knows. So anyway, not resisting any of it, using the dark and the things in the night to fine tune your perception, and to bring you further into your power, because it's part of it. We have to navigate. We have to learn how to walk through that realm as we move out of third dimensional frequency and perception. We move through the fourth dimension, and we have to not get stuck there. And in order to not get stuck there, you have to not resist it. Not resist it and fear it. You walk through it. You interface with it. You align with your own power. You're not afraid of the conflict, or the the skills that are being asked of you when you're in this realm. You know, you walk through into the higher frequencies, into the higher, into that where your neural pathway is one, again, viewing the situation in the most empowering way possible, you know. And then you're immune, you know, and once you're immune, then you can create, right? But you got to get immune first. You know, you can't just shy back and stay on the lower levels because you're afraid of this stuff. You got to know your power and walk through it, and then you're free and you're liberated. And I feel like that's what a lot of us are doing right now. Okay, so I just got clear there. I just got clear. That's what this is about. We're moving through. We're navigating through that fourth dimensional system, and we're moving through the trapping systems that will keep us down because we're actually right here. We're right here in this energy, and we just have to release fully from the trapping systems. And fine-tuning that perception. So it's getting kind of dark in here. I guess there's some clouds. I can't see my cards very well, but that's okay. I know them very well. Oh, wow. Okay, so the Five of Swords. So the Five of Swords, you know, coming out with the Five of Wands as well. First of all, fives are about change. So that's kind of what I was just saying. It's like we're walking through. I forget exactly how I just said it, but, you know, we're coming through this threshold. Fives are a threshold energy as well. We're moving into a new energy. This is coming out underneath the dream the world into being. So this is what we're moving into. We're moving into that co-creative power where we're bringing ourselves forward, and this is coming out underneath it. So this was happening in the reading before last too, where we got the devil twice in a row, and it was like the devil was showing as an ally, where it was like he was coming out underneath this expanded energy. So this is happening again, where this, you know, it's almost like don't resist the fear, you know, surrender to the fear, because the fear is a portal. The fear is your shadow. It's the portal to your shadow where you can confront yourself and then fully have your energy contained, because there's nothing within yourself that you're resisting, and there's nothing in the world outside of you that you're resisting, because you don't realize that this is actually you, right? Okay, so now we come into the Five of Swords. This is when it's in you. You know, this is when it comes close and center, you know, coming out, doing that shadow work. This is where you don't want to hurt or get hurt, or you don't want to like be embarrassed or ashamed, or you're worrying about what other people are. It's all that like internal thing where you can like spiral into fear of like, oh my gosh, oh no. And it's very personal. It's very much in your head. It's the swords. It's your mind, you know. So again, we have to go through that, and we have to unplug that stuff. So it really feels like, wow, the lighting is really beautiful. It really feels, yeah, it really feels like, you know, and even this here, you know, this light behind him, it's like he's in battle, and he's, you know, he's battled all these people, and he's ready to battle more, and he's just, you know, he just feels like he has to keep battling. And meanwhile, it's kind of coming through like a Four of Cups energy. Behind him is this like beautiful sunrise or sunset, or, you know, where I think it's actually traditionally a sunrise. Like he just battled all night, and he won all the battles, and he's resting a little bit, but he's going to battle more. You know, it's a new day, and but the truth of the new day is this rise into this new frequency. So again, you know, feeling that you somehow have to continue to battle, but that's what we're unplugging. We're unplugging because we're moving into these expanded energies where we're starting to co-create and starting to build, and so we're just being put into a deeper level of shadow work, and yeah, and where it's really all us. It's like coming back to us. And like for me with this energy where I was like, I don't know, I feel like something's coming, it's reminding me of this thing from my past, and it's like, yet there's nothing going on. There's not even any threats, you know, for me personally, and there's nothing I can think of, you know, at all. And so yeah, so it just shows how deep these things are, how deep they are, and yet being felt very viscerally and very on the surface, because again, it's a reflection of this. It's the other side of this energy. It's what we're being asked to push through. So I hope that makes sense. I don't know if I found the best words for that, but let's keep going here. Oh, interesting. So we got this card two readings ago, that benediction, where it was like there's something coming through. There's something coming through for us that's being gifted for us. And last time it came up with the Six of Cups, and it came up as sort of the last message, where it felt like, okay, this was on the horizon. Like at that point we were going through a lot of sort of like the external devil situations, a lot of us. Now it feels like more of that internal shadow work, where it's like maybe some of those external situations have pointed us towards ourselves, and now we're having to confront that. But there's, at the same time, this is what I was saying in relation to that with this card on top of it, at the same at the same time, there's this benediction coming through. You don't realize that right behind you, as you're doing these last levels of kind of holding steady through that heaviness, or holding steady through that anxiety or that uncertainty, there's this benediction coming for you. And so I don't know if I finished that thought. Amanda Lawrence was talking about how we're having this energy coming in today, this new energetic signature, and how a lot of people I was reading on the post were like, oh my gosh, it's so beautiful. I think that's this type of energy. And obviously everything is connected. So if we were doing a bunch of this sort of like cleanup or shadow work, again, that clears out the way for more energy to come in. So the timing of that, and now being sort of downloaded with this new frequency that she always says it takes about 3 days for these new patterns of energy to integrate. So that's interesting. Getting hot. it's yeah. So there's a lot of energy. There's a lot of energy with this. I can feel it. I'm getting really hot. I'm not just hot. This energy is running through my body. So that's really beautiful. So we get 2 cards. This kind of completes the row. The Fool. So there's that surrender again. So kind of starting and coming towards the end here with this surrender energy, and coming out underneath the 5 of Wands. So there it is again, just surrendering to this energy when it comes up, when it feels kind of intense or you feel a little uncomfortable. And that's like, for me, when I was like, oh, I feel kind of uncomfortable, it's like, well, just keep going, just keep going, because you're okay, and this has a purpose and this has a place. And go out in nature, or pace around if you need to, or whatever you need to do. Like, it's going to pass, it's going to alchemize, and it has its place, because everything is energy in motion, dancing itself out into perfection. Trust, and trusting and surrendering, and surrendering into your hologram, your life, your geometry, your specific way of unraveling. And so here, ending on the Ace of Cups. So this is the card that we got twice for a while, when some of those situations for us were starting, if you were relating to those readings, where we were, remember like around Lionsgate, and it started to break, right, like around the 7th, and a lot of us were going through like really, really intense things where we were like, I can't see, I don't know where I am. That's when I think we got, it was after that we got those 2 devil cards, where we were like really, really crunched, and really feeling like, holy shit, when is this gonna lift? Like Lionsgate, right? That portal leading up to the peak of it was really, really intense for a lot of us. But in that reading, we got the Ace of Cups twice. So it was like we're having really intense experiences that are crunching us into areas of our past. And there might be an outer person that's reflecting that to you, or it might be an outer situation. It might be something that leaves the field, but whatever it was putting us into some really dark, amorphous places within ourselves, but that it was held. It was held within the vessel that we are, within our sacred light, and within the wider energy, whatever it was, whatever that situation was that was creating that crunch for us, was also holding this energy. So it was like this sort of like up leveling onto our higher timelines, right? And just this process from before, as the Lion Gate opened, and maybe a little bit before for some people as well, and then walking ourselves through that corridor, and so a lot of deep I'm lost, and then it starts, you get the clarity, and then now we're like doing, the self-doubt, and clearing out that clearing out that level. I'm throwing cards. Clearing out that level, the last levels, and then coming into, not the last, but you know what I mean, just clearing out to the point where we have our this life force, this fiery energy, this will, this energy, this divine spark, and now I'm summarizing, moving into another level of clearing that just has a different quality to it. Let me see if I can get it. It almost feels like a scab to me. Like a scab, whereas like before Lionsgate, we were like deep in the wound, like pulling out the rot, and now it's like that area has like a scab on it, and the scab is like ready to go and just peeling off. So it's interesting, because I got into a little fender bender, and it was this little old lady driving this very big truck, and she didn't see me, and I was 1 block from my house, and I was driving up to my house, and she just kind of like was at the stop sign, and she just went right through the stop sign, and she didn't see me, and I hit the brakes, and granted I was only going like 5, so I hit the brakes pretty good, but she hit me, and I was actually on the way to take my daughter down south to my ex-husband, because he was going to give her a ride to the airport to go to Morocco the next day. So it was like this like huge it was a big event. It was a big event in her life and in our lives, especially considering where she was at a year ago at this time, within herself and her psyche. And I've talked about that in a lot of different readings, and just like this huge like butterfly moment for her, and then we get hit, and we're not able to go down, and I have to call the insurance company, and I have to do all these things, and everything got really delayed. But because I was able to brake, this woman, all she did was like knock off my plastic bumper. So I just like baling wired it up, like duct taped my fog light onto the outside so it wasn't hanging anywhere, and then we went down, and like no big deal. And but so to me, it kind, because I had a friend, and she's like, I know you always view your car as your Merkaba, and so how do you view this? And I was like, oh my gosh. And so I was telling her, it reminds me of like homeopathic medicine, where when you have a rash, you know that you're on that last level of healing, like it's come out from the pus, and like like last time I was talking about the mud, and like going through the mud, and like sliding on the mud in the river, and getting down to that bottom. But now it feels like so you've done that, and then the homeopathics, you have just a rash. You're at the inception point of that trauma, or of that sickness or wounding or whatever, which is always about a trauma or some sort of separation, some sort of this type of energy. And so it's coming out as a rash, and you're like, wow. That's how I felt about my car. I've had lots of problems with my car. It was with a flood in Colorado in 2012, and so I didn't know that, and so I have lots of problems with my car. And so now it's just this, I've traded out like pretty much everything over the last 7 or 8 years. It's like a brand new car now, but it was just this last thing, and it just reminded me of that like outer edge, like the scab, like the scab. So that's kind of the quality of this type of energy, even though it can be kind of uncomfortable. It's almost like sort of not a big deal at all, because it's just a scab. So that's just kind of what it feels like to me. I am going to do one last closing message. I'm staring at my angel cards, so I'm going to go ahead and pull from there. This is a shorter reading. You know why? Because I didn't talk a whole lot in the beginning, because I didn't have a whole lot to say other than I feel weird. So, okay, so we get compassion, and again, this matching this fiery energy again, sort of a collective energy also coming up in this personal reading. So a lot of this fiery creation energy, and that message and reminder as our final message, just have compassion for the whole thing. Have compassion for yourself when you're in this energy, or any of these sort of like shadowy energies, and also compassion for the world, and compassion for where we're at right now, because it's almost like it can't be any other way. Again, it's that perfection, everything's dancing itself out to perfection, and to trust, so it's where we're at in the process right now, where we're moving through some of this type of energy, and we're having some fears come up, and we might even be having some of that resistance, or being asked to see those places of resistance, and again, rewiring our brains, like what was coming up in that last reading, so that our dominant neural pathway is one of surrender, which is the advice. The overall energy for this reading is that surrender, because we're in this place where we can dream the world into being. So we need to not be in opposition with anything, not be in opposition to anything that's happening within ourselves, within our own energy field, within the frequencies that we're feeling, or things that are manifesting in our lives, and surrendering to all of it, and knowing that it's all part of that dream. And nothing's wrong. Nothing's ever wrong. This is where we're at in human evolution. We can't just bypass these last scabs or dregs, or maybe even another wound that's festering that we got to go in. Whatever it is, just having compassion for the whole thing, because it's exactly right. It's all exactly right. Also having compassion for yourself, and having compassion for everyone else that's involved that might be struggling, and also knowing that everybody's kind of struggling in one way or another. So compassion for like. So I've been a little paranoid when I'm driving, where I'm like, I'm not like trusting anybody. And so today I was literally driving to the collision shop to like get an estimate for my car. And I was on this like back road, and I didn't think anybody was there. And I saw the street, and I was like, wait, is it this way or this way? And I'm stopping in the middle of the road, and I started to go this way. I'm like, no, I think it's this way. And I hear this screeching, and I was like, oh fuck, there was somebody behind me. And they were like, and I was like the idiot in the middle of the road, and I was like, God, we gotta be careful out here. Like, there were just like a bunch of like loose cannons driving around, including me, and it was just that thing of like, gosh, we can be on either side of the coin, at any moment, just having compassion. All of us, for all of it, because we're all doing the best that we can. And it's like, some of that like 3D stuff, and it's like our visions are changing, and like just all of the things that our bodies are going through, and we're tired and we're like here and not there, and and just like everybody's doing the best that they can. So it's just that ending message of compassion for ourselves and for others, and even for the ones that are playing the dark angels, the ones that are that think they're the next savior, and they're taking this ascension like incredibly personal, where they think their rising is they're the only ones. I know a couple people like that, and that's fine because they're playing their role as well. And again, a lot about that kind of discernment with those types of energies, and learning the nuances, and being able to read it and not be duped by it, and getting lots of practice. A lot of this stuff is practice, and that and that fine tuning of our abilities to see and to keep our energy intact so that we can co-create, because there's just going to be more and more and more of that, because again, as there's more light, there's going to be more of the polarity as we're unraveling this duality consciousness. So the more we can surrender and embrace it all, the faster we can get on to our creation, and the faster we can be a part of this benediction that the others are feeling as well, of these higher frequencies. So but the message of compassion, because it's kind of tricky right now. So anyway, thank you for listening to me, and for enduring. I felt like I was a little uncentered, but sometimes it's fun to do readings like that too, just to be just to allow the message to guide as we go along. So thanks for listening, and just for doing all of the stuff that you're doing inside of yourself, and remembering that it's all for a reason. So okay, much love to you. I'll see you next time if I do. Bye.